Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, coming to you 6 days a week as we interview whitetail experts and hear their traditions and personal stories of the hunt. Learn more about the latest gear, discover proven tips, and the latest strategies so you can make your next hunt a success. Now, here's your host, Bruce Hutchin.
As host to Whitetail Rendezvous, I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for almost 100,000 iTunes downloads. Thank you to the 300 guests who've been on the show. And thank you to over 30,000 followers on social media. Couldn't do this show without every single one of you. And secondly, sometimes the sound quality isn't radio quality, isn't recording room quality. It is what it is. People might be in a tree stand, a box blind. They might be sitting in their pickup truck on a hillside, or they might be traveling to and from a blind or home from work. They're all over. And because of that, sometimes the quality isn't what you would expect or would have hoped for. Neither am I.
Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast number 301. Another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. Today we're going to head up to Mount Horeb, Wisconsin. We're going to meet with Jim Campbell. Had Jim on the show about 6 or 8 months ago, and a lot of things have changed. And one thing, a little background on Jim, about 9 years ago, he was in a hunting camp, and he watched guys filming. He decided to get involved in it. And about 5 years ago, something very important happened to Jim. He did some filming for a family you hear about on the show, and he says, it was at that moment I knew in my heart what I wanted to do for this so others could enjoy.
Hey, listeners, don't forget to text 33444 Food Plot for your free Food Plot ebook.
Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. This is your host, and folks, this is episode number 301. You already heard that, but that's special because we've done over 300 episodes. We're heading to Madison, Wisconsin, just outside of Madison, Wisconsin, and we're going to connect with Jim Campbell. Jim does a lot of work. He's a freelance videographer, and he is currently working with Red Feather Media. Jim, welcome to the show.
Hey, Bruce, thanks much.
Say, Jim, long ago, I think about it, you had to be one of the first 20, 30 people on the show, and as we're doing a warm-up, I had to reminisce that you pulled over the side of the highway, and we did the show. You were sitting in your car, so, it's nice to circle back around and talk to old friends. So what the heck's been going on in your life since we last talked?
Bruce, I remember that day for sure. Today I'm a little bit more comfortable. I'm actually in my office, so a little bit warmer. Nothing's moving around me, so life has been good. I've gotten more and more into videography and photography. I started working for Open Season TV based out of Indiana last season. I filmed for them last year and this year. And most recently, Red Shutter Media down in Hot Springs, Arkansas, has contracted me, and I'm doing just a ton of work for those guys. So it's exciting times right now.
Well, it is, and forgive me, listeners, it's Red Shutter. I think I said Red Feather. I was thinking Red Feather Lakes up here in Colorado. My bad. But, tell me, let's go back a little bit. And how did you get into this? Because I remember you telling me way back when it was about creating memories. Well, you're doing more than that now. So let's just give the listeners a little background and then really dig into what it means to be in the outdoors and be a freelance videographer.
Sure. Well, about 9 years ago, my wife is a big bow hunter, and she and I were sharing a camp down in Illinois, and we had two different TV crews in camp at the same time. It was my first exposure to that, and I was running around with my little JVC Handycam, and these guys had big cameras, and I was impressed. I've always enjoyed videography and photography, and just being around them and listening to them and seeing their excitement and enthusiasm was really contagious. And we left there, and I had the attitude that, look, I'm gonna pursue this more and more. And I did. I started, paying more attention to the shows and watching, what did I like, what did I not like on shows I was watching. And then about 5 years ago, I had an opportunity to video father and son in Wisconsin. I put on Facebook an offer to go volunteer my time to video somebody for the youth hunt. and a father up by Eau Claire contacted me, and he has a 10-year-old son with autism, and he'd never shot a deer, so I volunteered to go up for the weekend. It's only a 2-day hunt. And that first afternoon, the young man shot his first deer. It was a doe. And I had the camera rolling on a tripod. I turned it around. I instructed the father that, I want you guys to tell me exactly what just happened and what you're feeling. And as they started talking back and forth, and particularly the father telling the story, I actually started to cry. So here I am standing behind the tripod, and I'm bawling. And I told those guys right then and there, I said, you know what? I said, this is what I want to do. Being able to capture those memories for other people so they can, they can always look back on this. And they're always going to have that video to reflect on. And that was it. That was a life-defining moment for me.
Wow. Just think of it, folks. And this episode's going to be about Jim Campbell's journey and what he's doing now. And we're going to take it apart because I know there's hundreds of you who want to get into, filming your hunt, filming the outdoors, doing a lot of things. And Jim has invested in it. Let's talk about your investment and what you decide to do in terms of cameras and schools, and in your opinion, what it really takes to get good at your craft.
Yeah, I think really what it takes is the attitude and the desire, and I mean the true love. Everybody says they want to be a cameraman, and you've got to understand, I've been on the road for months and months already this year. You might get home for 3 days after a 3-week trip only to leave again. So, it takes a special relationship at home. But to get up and do your job 12, 14, 16 hours every day for 3 weeks straight for less than minimum wage, in many cases, once you figure out how many hours you're working, you better really love it, not just like it a lot, because it'll break you down mentally, it'll break you down physically, and you've got to be willing to put the time in, just up front to do the job. Beyond that, I think I was fortunate that I went to 3 different camera schools put on by Rusted Rooster over in Michigan. And I invested early in the education, not so much the equipment. And I learned what does it take to shoot good video, to shoot, good photos, to do some editing. And I just see too many young guys, especially, that are all worried about they've got to have the latest, greatest, best camera with all the attachments on it. And then I see them running the thing on full auto. And I just, I try to help them and say, you guys really just need to go to some schools and learn how to use what you have, because technically running a camera is such a small part of the equation. But being able to create and tell a story effectively, that comes from the heart. That is something that really matters when you look at somebody's footages. Are they a good storyteller?
And it is the story. And in the warm-up, we talked about your commitment of time, and you just kind of overlap that. You've been on the road and doing things. Realistically, to get good at your craft and do the things that the people you're working for, seriously, what is the time commitment?
Well, to get good at your craft, you said, I'm not sure that we're ever good at our craft, and I say that lovingly, I guess, because the people who are good at their craft are the ones who never give up learning, and that is huge. There are a lot of people in this business who seem to know everything about everything, and then there are guys that get up every day and try to learn something, just one thing. And in order to be good at your craft, you need to have that attitude. Now, how long does that take? I think a guy that has the ability to listen and is creative generally can go out in a season, if they put the right time in, and go out in the season and really excel. It's not rocket science. Again, it's being able to creatively tell a story, push the right buttons on the camera, so the technical aspect of it can be taught pretty much in a weekend. And then applying that is the challenge. You've got to make the time to go do it. During a hunt is not the time to go figure out your camera. You've got all summer long. Go figure out your camera. Go, video ducks down the lake. Go do something with your camera. Figure it out and learn that camera inside and out. But I think a year or two into it, and especially if you go to some schools, that can shortcut you dramatically. I learned more in schools in 3 days than I had learned myself in the first 4 years. So I think committing to schools is huge.
What type of investment do you think is the minimum that a person should make if they're going to get into this side of the outdoor industry?
Sure. today's cameras are just shy of amazing what you can get for the money. And if I was a weekend hunter and my buddy and I decided we want to go film ourselves, there are both, Sony and Canon camcorders. They're small, compact, easily under $1,500 that shoot amazing video. Those are great, starter intermediate level cameras. So for under $2,000, you can get complete packages, everything that you really need to go film your hunts. I would say that, for new guys getting into this, consider buying something used, because if you're like me, you're either going to buy things that are inexpensive and then replace them in 6 months, or you're going to buy something, inexpensive and decide to upgrade it within a year. So you're really losing money. And I guess if I had to do it all over again, I would probably buy nothing but, quality used equipment to get started until I really figure out exactly, where do I want to be.
And listeners, I'll just share this. A long time ago, really a long time ago, I'm 70 years old now, so some 50 years ago when I started this, guy named Harry Shear, who hunted out west, and I hunted with his brother-in-law, and he said, Hutch, he said, if you're going to go hunting and I can see the fire in your eyes, and he said, just remember this, buy the best quality equipment you can possibly get. And a rifle's a rifle, but your optics are actually just as important or maybe more important. And so buy good optics for your rifle and binoculars and or spotting scope. And I never forget that. And I transferred that to all my clothing, everything I have. I try to buy the best I can afford. Now, everybody can't go out and buy Swarovskis or Leicas in the top end, but there's plenty of good companies out there. Vortex Optics is a company right there in Madison, Wisconsin, that I have a relationship with. So just, do the best you can, because it'll pay you dividends down the road. I have a Bushnell compact spotting scope that I bought for my first trip out to Wyoming in 1975, and it's still operational.
Right.
So,
and a lot of guys say that they can't afford, I'll use wireless mics as an example, because I did this personally. I was looking for a wireless mic system for my first one, and I didn't want to spend the $800 on a really good set. So I spent $200 on a cheap set. Well, they sound like a cheap set. And within a couple months, I had to spend the $800 to get the good ones. So you have to ask yourself, you say, well, I can't afford just to buy the good ones. Well, if you can't afford to buy the good ones, how on earth can you afford to waste money on the cheap ones? You're better off just saving your money or buying good used ones, I guess, and that's more my point, is buy the best that you can. And sometimes that means used, and that's okay.
Do you get your used stuff off eBay, or what's some of the sources that you use if you need a piece of equipment that you go, hey, I know what it costs new, but how do you find good used equipment? I guess that's what I'm asking.
eBay is a great source. A lot of the stuff is guaranteed, and eBay stands behind it, and so it's very secure that way. B&H Photo is a worldwide leader in cameras and audio, and they have a used department, and then I've bought from them in the past also. So either one of those sources is fine, and there are others out there, but B&H is probably my go-to website.
So, Jim, if somebody wants to get a hold of you and say, I am serious about this, and heck, you started later in life. You were a custom home builder in the Madison area and decided to get involved in this just 9 years ago. So, folks, it's an open door, and there's more opportunity today than ever. And Jim, comment on that for me, because everybody sees the proliferation of YouTube and this and that and all different platforms, but there's more opportunity in my viewpoint.
There is, and especially, I shouldn't say especially, but for a videographer, the biggest problem that TV shows or pro staffs or anybody else has with videographers is generally the videographer gets involved because they want to end up in front of the camera. I'm completely the opposite. I want nothing to do with being on film. I want to be the guy behind the camera. So if that's what you want, I think it's an easier path. But again, it goes back to you've got to be willing to put in the time and learn the trade rather than just pushing a record button. that. I think this goes back to going to schools and practice. And there's a number of TV shows that actually offer apprenticeships, starting in the off season, where you can go and get some hands-on training, and potentially that can work into a full-time job as well.
How does somebody reach out to you, Jim?
Well, I'm on Facebook, Jim Campbell from Mount Horeb, Wisconsin, and I've also got a group on Facebook. If you're interested, you need to ask to be included in the group. I don't publicly just add people, but it's called Filming the Hunter Behind the Scenes. And I started that group kind of as a help group for guys coming into, I shouldn't say young guys, anybody coming into videography that has questions. It's a group of people that are at all different skill levels, so beginners to experts, and it's all about helping each other and answering questions. And that's one problem in this industry is if you do have a question, it's hard to find somebody to actually answer your question without them just bragging about themselves, I think. And I mean, there's plenty of good guys out there, but I want to make sure that at least I can create a forum where everybody's very comfortable asking those questions.
In the warm-up, we talked about accomplishments. What does that mean to you?
Accomplishments?
Yes.
Well, being able to sit back and watch a TV show on Pursuit Channel or Sportsman Channel, knowing that you made those shots, that you created that, and watching the others have success, to me, is the most fun. I'm not in this for personal gain. I'm not in it to have my name plastered all over. Just watching the hunters and the guides and whoever you're filming, the interaction between them and the fun that they have, when it all goes right and you get it captured, that's special because you know that you've done something for someone else. And at this point in my life, that means more to me than anything else. It's permanent. They have it to always go back and reflect that.
Wow, that's a really powerful statement, listeners. If you heard that, the money didn't come in, the credits didn't come in, that, hey, look at me, didn't come in. It's just Jim has the pride that a job well done is a job well done, and he's getting a tremendous amount of pleasure out of that. That's unique in today's society, I would think, Jim. I'm on Facebook all the time and all the social media, and there's a lot of, and I'm guilty of it too. Hey, look what I did yesterday, or hey, look what I just did. And I'd love to see, the down deer or big buck down. I love sharing that. I love sharing the journey. But sometimes I think, and like I said, I've been guilty of it myself, and I hope I'm getting better. But, it's like, hey, look at me. And your thoughts on that, Jim?
Well, yeah, I do. I don't mind the, hey, look at me, if you're going to take the time to answer every question then. I see guys that post every day, they post amazing pictures. I had a guy yesterday post an amazing photo on Facebook, and I replied to him. I said, that's a great picture. What were your settings? What camera did you use? Because, again, I wake up every day wanting to learn something, and I just want to know exactly how did he do what he did. And he replied to me instantly and told me everything that I asked. That's very rare. I shouldn't say it's very rare. It's more rare than it is common. And, again, I don't mind the, hey, look at me, look at this amazing photo. But then turn around and help people learn how you did that, because that's what I'm about, is how can we grow as, in industry, if you will, get more and more guys involved in this, because it's good for everybody. You don't have to be worried that somebody's going to steal your photo or steal your video or steal your techniques. I mean, there's plenty of work to go around. So, help each other along the way and then watch their success. I mean, it's really fun when somebody actually learns what an f-stop is, because they had no clue what is an f-stop, but they've been filming for 3 years.
Oh.
So it's fun. I really enjoy helping, almost to the point where it consumes me some days, where guys have so many questions, but that's okay. It's a good thing.
Yeah, I'm sitting here laughing because it was 19. What the heck was it? 80. Had to be 81, 80. I'm going to call it 85. So, I was hunting, I've been hunting out west since in the mid 70s. And so I said, I'm going to get a good camera. So I made a couple of bucks at work, and I can remember going, I was in New York City anyway. And so I went to, what's the famous street, 37th Street photo, or I think that's it.
Oh, yeah.
In New York City. So I went there and bought a Nikon body and lenses. Right. And back then I spent a couple of bucks, but it was the best I could get. And I just remember I had to learn about all the stuff, because today you pick up a good Nikon digital camera, put it on automatic, and you'll get good pictures. You won't get great pictures, but you'll get good pictures. And as Jim just alluded to, he asked the guy, what his f-stop was. So if you don't know what an f-stop was, just Google it and start learning about what you're holding in your hand, because it'll make you better. Your thoughts, Jim?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Again, too many guys are worried about, do I have the latest and greatest cameras? And, I can equate that to rifles. Do I need to spend $5,000 to get a custom-made 300 Win Mag with a 24-power scope to go out west and kill an elk at, 300 yards? No, because I can only shoot so well anyhow, and my 1965 7mm mag is going to do just as good a job with me pulling the trigger. So the point is, until your abilities have outgrown your equipment, don't waste the money upgrading. Until your abilities have outgrown your equipment, don't waste your money. I think that's really important.
In the warm-up, I talked about your elevator, pitch, hey, or, a coffee shop or whatever pitch. So I see you in a shop, and I realized, you're an outdoors guy, and you smiled at me when I smiled at you, and I said, hey, what do you do?
Right. Well, I get to chase people around the country with cameras and video cameras, recording their every move, and I actually get paid to do it. And that's a pretty darn cool thing.
Yeah, it is. And just, you said you've been traveling a lot. What states were you in, and what type of game were you filming, if it's not over, I guess, 20?
Right. We started off the end of August, 1st September in Utah, chasing mule deer. We went from Utah immediately to Colorado, chasing mule deer, and the hunter I was filming there shot his biggest ever mule deer with a bow. It was 203 6/8.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. We came home for a couple of days. We went up to Manitoba for bear hunting, and then to Alberta for an elk hunt, and then Alberta for moose. Came back home for a short stay and went to New Mexico for elk and antelope. And again, the same hunter shot his first bull elk with a muzzleloader and biggest antelope ever with a rifle. So this guy shot 3 of his biggest ever on camera this year. And you talk about rewarding. I mean, he could have gone and done that without a camera. Well, actually, he couldn't, because he's on a TV show, but let's just say he could have. But being there when somebody makes an accomplishment, especially like that, his first or biggest, and we got 3 of them for him on film this year. That was just amazing. Then after that, we've been down in Kansas and Texas, and I leave bright and early tomorrow morning to head back down to northeast Arkansas to film a duck hunt. And right from there, we're going back down to South Texas, and I think Mississippi after that. So I'll be home right before Christmas.
I was going to ask you, are you going to make it home for Christmas?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, everybody looks and said, wow, that's a little over 100 days, and he's probably not been on the road for most of it. Do you have a down season?
Well, for the hunting show industry, there is a down season for sure. Now with Red Shutter Media, they're a full production company. So besides filming for several different shows, they also do commercials and sponsor shots and all this type of other thing, which really, really interests me. I hadn't even thought about that until this year. But any chance to be creative is kind of what gets me going. It's not just going to film a hunt. I mean, if we get to go shoot a commercial for, let's say, Scent Crusher products, in August or July, and I get to be really creative on where are we going to go, how are we going to do this. That's what gets my juices flowing. That's what I like so much about videography and photography is, at the end of the day, it's pretty much all an art form, and it's subjective. Some people like your art, some people don't like your art. But being able to pursue that and figure out, look, I like doing things this way, and making that grow that's really fun.
Do you ever get to a point, or will you get to the point that your work becomes your signature, and somebody who's in the industry looks at it and said, Jim Campbell did that. They don't even have to see the credits.
Yeah, I don't know if it will or not. I watch a lot of different shows, and there are certain shows I like and certain shows I don't like. And I guess photography is a better example of that. I'm really, really big on storytelling. And when I look at a photo, whether it's one of mine or somebody else's, I want to understand why that shutter button was pushed at that particular time. And what is that photo really trying to tell me? And they can be very simple photos, and they can be very elaborate photos. But to me, I have a real need to understand a story in whatever I see. Like, hopefully, the better I get, the more I'll be able to convey that to others.
When I started in this process, a gentleman named Judd Cooney, who's written hundreds of articles,
Right.
Probably more than that, and taken hundreds of, I've been in his house and seen the file cabinets of print, and then his stored over 100,000 pictures, mostly, all sorts of critters, and he told me at that time, he said, Bruce, if you're going to get in the outdoor industry, if you're going to have your podcast, you want to tell stories, because the photo is what people want to see, and then the word, the content, is just the brief explanation of what that is, what they're viewing. Your thought?
Well, I agree. If all you're doing is a photo, you don't necessarily have the opportunity to explain it. So it needs to be done right, from the get-go. And, there's a lot of technical things that we could talk about, what makes a good photo, what doesn't make a good photo. But somebody should be able to look at that instantly and say, I love it, or it's just a nice photo, or it's a bad photo, one of the three. And whether or not they even realize they understand the story behind it, subconsciously, I believe they do, and I believe that's what makes, a good photo. And one that you look at and it just makes sense. You're not searching for subject matter. You look at it and you know exactly what you're looking at and why.
Wow. You've got a lot of insight, and it's amazing, from my point of view, Jim, the growth that I'm hearing, in the 16 months, 14 months, whatever, it was when we first had you on the show. Congratulations, man. You're doing a heck of a job.
Hey, thanks.
So, unbelievable, but we're at the soft stop of the show. So why don't you give a shout out, take 90 seconds, 120 seconds, and then we'll wrap the show.
All right. Yeah. I'd like to thank a couple people. Open Season TV, they were the first, legitimate TV show to take a chance on me. Chuck Paddock, James Blankenbeckler, Clay Gilbert. I appreciate the opportunity that they gave me and the support they showed me and being able to work with a new guy and, get behind the scenes, so to speak. Now Rob Schneider, Bo Schneider down at Red Shutter Media. These guys are amazing. It's super exciting. I think our future together is extremely bright. We're going lots of places, doing lots of things, constantly learning, growing, and it's been a great time, and I look forward to the future for sure.
Well, Jim Campbell from Wisconsin, thank you so much for being on the guest, and I look forward to meeting up a year from now and seeing what new developments have happened and see what where your work has taken you. And one of these times, just like you mentioned, the guy, I know he's on a TV show, so I don't know if I'd ever be able to get him on a podcast, but that would be a great guy to have on the show. So if that ever works, let me know. So on behalf of Whitetail Rendezvous podcasts all across North America, Jim Campbell, thank you so much, and Merry Christmas to you, sir.
Thanks, Bruce.
Make sure you listen to the next episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. We're going to head down south, Ashland City, Tennessee, to be back, and visit with Ben Moore. Ben's on pro staff or team member for American Roots Outdoors with Alex and Linda Rutledge.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.